Hey everyone, Stone here with Nintendo Life, and it has been exactly 100 days since the Nintendo Switch 2 launched around the world on June 5th. This video is my 100-day review of the console, my thoughts and opinions on it, and if I think it is worth it, or if you should just go and buy a different console. So in this video, we're going to compare all of the Switch family consoles together. I'm going to give you a few of my experiences with the Switch 2 over this 100 days, and tell you if it's right for you or just to stick to your original Nintendo Switch. Let's get started. Okay, let's go ahead and start this 100-day review by giving some background on some of the other systems, and then I'll give my recommendations on which system is right for you after 100 days of the Nintendo Switch 2. So let's go ahead and get started with the one that started it all, the Nintendo Switch. This came out in March of 2017 for a retail price of $300. Since then, it has raised the price from $300 to $340 due to inflation. That was fairly recent, actually. But let's go ahead and take a look at the design of the console. Starting off, we have the neon blue, neon red Joy-Cons, the original color Segway that was everywhere, all over advertising posters and such. We have our display here, which is a 6.2-inch LCD display that is 720p at 60 Hz. We have our speaker grills right here, and I will say the border on this display is quite large. That is my first complaint about the original Switch, is the bezels are quite large. Looking at the top, we have our power button, our volume rocker, our airvort, pint, whatever. What did I just say? We have our vent right here. We have our 3.5mm headphone jack, and we have our game card slot right here. Looking at the bottom, we have the USB-C charging port, and this is also used for data out for docked. Looking at the back, we have our kickstand right here, which also doubles as a SD card reader. So we have an SD card slot right there for inserting an SD card, which you will need with this one because it only comes with 32 gigs of internal storage with 4 gigabytes of RAM. So you'll definitely need an SD card for this one. But I will say this is a good console overall, and I used it up until October of 21, which is when the Switch OLED was announced and released, and that's when I switched to that. In terms of improvements, we now have a 7-inch OLED display, still 720p at 60 Hz, but it is now a newer technology OLED, which you get those creamier colors, those richer colors, those dark, vibrant blacks that look amazing. We have a cleaner design overall. We have white for the Joy-Cons now. You could still get the neon red, neon blue, but I personally think the white looks way better and more sleek. Looking at the top, we have our power button, our volume rocker, we have our vent, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, we have our card, game card slot right here. On the bottom, we have the USB-C charging and data port, and on the back, this is where we got another improvement. Not only does it look more sleek, but we have the new and improved kickstand that won't break off like the original and is adjustable. So instead of one fixed position, we can do as many positions as we want, and we have our SD card reader right here, which I think you still need because this one only had an upgraded 64 gigabytes of internal storage with 4 gigabytes of RAM, and it still had the same docked performance of 1080p 60. Next up, we have the Switch Lite, which I don't own. It's the only Nintendo console that I don't own, so we'll put a JPEG here, but the Switch Lite was introduced to the more handheld player base that didn't really care about TV mode and wanted those core Switch games at a really good price. The Switch Lite only launched at $200, but is now $230 with inflation. And it includes a D-pad, which is one of the greatest things ever. I don't know why the others don't have a D-pad and they have these 4 buttons. But the Switch Lite is great for platformers. It's very clean. It does not have a kickstand on the back, and it boasts a 5.5-inch LCD display at 720p 60. only has 32 gigs of storage like the original Switch with 4 gigs of RAM. And this one does not support docked mode. So no TV for you. Then the one that everyone has been waiting for, the Nintendo Switch 2. The Switch 2 is a much cleaner looking console overall and is much bigger too. It conforms to my hands much better because I have quite large hands. The original Switch felt more like a child's toy, not only in my hands but the way it sounds. Like if you listen to, it sounded more toyish compared to this more sleek, rugged feel of the Switch 2. I don't know if you could hear that. But the Switch 2 is substantially larger. It puts a nod towards the original Switch with accents to the original Joy-Con colors of neon red, neon blue, and also has them on the inside of the new Joy-Con mechanism, which is now magnetic. They no longer slide off. They are now magnetic, which I do say feels a lot more rigid. It feels more solid. It feels more secure. The Joy-Cons won't just randomly pop off anymore like they used to. This got really bad on my Switch OLED, especially. You could just push off some of the Joy-Cons. Was it the right one? I think it's the right one. Yeah, you see, look at that. You can just push. You don't even have to hit the release button. It just comes off. The mechanism wore out, which was a big problem I've seen. Looking at the top of the console, we have our power button, volume rocker, we have our air vent, we have a now USB-C port up here. We have a 3.5mm headphone jack, and we have our SD card reader, or not SD card, game card reader, sorry, I'm speaking fast. We have our game card reader here, and a microphone. On the bottom, we have another USB-C port with more intake vents. On the back, they have once again learned it is much more sleek on the back with the improved kickstand, but we've removed some of the plastic just to save waste, I guess. We have our SD card slot here, which is only Express. It only supports microSD Express, which I don't think is as necessary anymore, but it is still a nice upgrade because this now comes with 256 gigabytes of internal storage with 12 gigabytes of RAM. Speaking of that, let's look at this gorgeous new display, which not only supports HDR in docked mode, but is now a 7.9-inch LCD display at 1080p. So we get full HD in handheld mode with up to 120 Hz, so it's buttery smooth. My one con about the display is I don't know why they didn't keep the OLED technology, but that's, I guess, for a Switch 2 OLED model that's coming out whenever. But I will say this display looks beautiful, especially when you dock this console, because you can get up to 4K 60 when you're docked, or 1080p 120. Just depends if you value the resolution or refresh rate more. This console launched for a price of $400 for the base and $450 for the base model with Mario Kart World bundled in. So, let's go ahead and talk price. That's one big complaint here, because the Switch OLED originally launched at $350, but with the new price hikes that have been coming out, this console now retails for $400 new, which is the same price of this console new at $400. So both of these consoles are $400. So I wouldn't say the Switch OLED is worth it anymore unless you already own a Switch OLED and you don't really care about the Switch 2 exclusives, then keep your OLED. Or you can find an OLED Switch secondhand. I would say it's maybe worth it then. Especially because the OLED's battery life is much better than the Switch 2's battery life. And that takes me to this segment here, battery life. Battery life on all of the Switch consoles have been great. On all three, I've averaged around 5-ish hours, with the Switch Lite being slightly less, but it's not too noticeable. This one, though, is bad. Playing Tears of the Kingdom from full charge, I got 2.5 hours. That is terrible. Now, maybe your experience with playing games on the Switch 2 might be better. That I only did one session, so I didn't have multiple trials, so it's not super scientific, but I did only get 2 hours or 2.5 hours of gameplay. So I'm not super impressed with the battery on this, especially because its sitting battery life is really bad. I'll set my Switch down after playing for 45-ish or so minutes. I'll set it down and the battery will still deplete, and the next time I go to pick it up, it's either really low on battery or it is completely dead. So I do find myself playing this docked more often than handheld. I do still play it handheld quite a bit, but I do play it docked more just because of how abysmal the battery is. So if you value battery life, I would definitely go for the OLED or the original Switch model. So, which Switch is right for you? Starting off with the Lite. If you only care about the core games and you're mainly on the go and you like yourself a handheld console, then go for the Switch Lite. It is perfect for you. It has got a very nice entry price, and you'll be able to get those core Nintendo games. And you can still connect Joy-Cons. You can buy them separately and connect them, so you can still, play games like Mario Party or ARMS or stuff like that. The original Nintendo Switch, I would say, is for the core players. This is for about 95% of the audience. This gets you the core Nintendo games with dock support. You get, of course, the detachable Joy-Cons. You get the kickstand. You get all of the core features of the Switch for only $340. I say this is still the best deal on the market, especially if you're only playing with family and friends every once in a while, like playing Mario Party or Mario Kart, or you want to play just a few first-party titles like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, Metroid, and you don't really care too much about the big exclusives for the Switch 2, like Cyberpunk or the new From Software game, Dusk Bloods. If you don't really care about those and you just want that core experience and with good battery life, good value, I would say go for the original Nintendo Switch. The Switch OLED, I would not recommend buying new anymore, especially because the retail price is now $400, which is, again, the same as the original Nintendo, or the Nintendo Switch 2. So I would not recommend buying it new. Now, if you have a coupon or it's on sale, then I would go for it. If you can find it secondhand, I'd go for it, especially with the OLED display. It looks great, especially handheld. Well, of course it's going to look great handheld. That's the whole purpose. But if you value that better handheld experience, then I would say keep your OLED if you already have it, or if you can find it on sale or secondhand, get it. But do not buy it new anymore, because it is the same price as the Switch 2, which is for about 5 to 10% of the actual Nintendo audience. This is for those hardcore gamers. So if you really value all the new stuff coming out, like Donkey Kong Bonanza, the new From Software game, what else got announced in the Direct? Let's see here. I'm blanking, but you get the point. Those wonderful exclusives. You want the highest resolution, the highest refresh rate, all the new core features like mouse mode. We have a now optical sensor here for using this as a mouse, which is really fun to mess around with. So this console is great, especially in 2025. The value for what you're getting is insane. The amount of performance that Nintendo was able to pack into this thing is quite impressive, especially for its size. It still remains the same thickness. While it's not the same width and height, it is still the same thickness as the original Nintendo Switch. So it's very impressive that they were able to fit all of that power into such a tiny package. But if you think being able to play all of the new games is worth it and you have a little bit of money to sling around, then I would say go for the Switch 2. It is worth it. But if you don't really care about the new games and you just want those core Nintendo games, I would say go for either the original or go for the OLED. But you will still get just as great of an experience as 90% of people. This is for those, hardcore. So I think that the Switch 2 was worth it, especially 100 days later. I've had a great time playing this console over the past 100 days. But like I said, my only gripe is the battery life, and the sticks have this little flap, so I'm gonna just like get really close here. If you can't see here, let's see if it'll focus. Come on, camera, you can do it. Come on, there we go. Yep, focus. Okay, so if you could see, there's a little flap in there. There's a little rubber flap in there around the stick. That rubber flap tends to fold in on itself, which is really weird. But that rubber flap tends to fold in, and the stick will get stuck, and you have to pry it out with something thin. Like on the original Switch, it also has that flap, but it's much smaller, so it doesn't really get in the way. But on the Switch 2, I will say that flap does fold in sometimes, so beware of that. I haven't seen anything on stick drift yet. I've had it, like I said, for 100 days. I haven't gotten stick drift yet, so that's thankful. Thank Jesus. But hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, that is my opinion on the Switch 2 100 days later. I do think it was worth it. Like I said, it was kind of difficult switching from the OLED because this was my daily. Switching from the original to the OLED was no-brainer, easy back in 21. You get the better display and stuff, but switching to this was kind of difficult with losing the OLED and all that stuff. But I do think all this time later it was worth it, especially with some of the game announcements I've seen. Metroid Prime 4 looks awesome. Splatoon Raiders looks awesome. I'm super excited for those games. But I do think that if you're a hardcore Nintendo fan, or you just love the performance and you want to see games like Tears of the Kingdom in 4K, then go for the Switch 2. It has been a great console. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this guide, this review, was helpful. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe, and I'm Stone, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.